Sonic 3 was something of a surprise. After going through Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 again, and I've already made a video on these. It's an old one, and if I'm going to come back and talk about it just a little bit, I love Jim Carrey as Robotnik. I've never watched any of the Sonic cartoons. I've played some of the older games, like I played Sonic 2, I think, and I played Sonic for the Game Gear. I played Sonic Spinball for the Genesis. That was pretty fun. It's basically a pinball game, but it's Sonic, so that was fun. I liked that. I think Spinball is one of the more creative pinball games I've ever played. I'm not a big fan of pinball, but Spinball was pretty fun. But outside of that, I've not played too many Sonic games. I'm not savvy on the Sonic lore. I don't know about all these other characters in the series. I know about Sonic, Tails, Shadow, Knuckles, and Amy. Those are those are the only ones I know about. Like intimately know about. Oh, of course, I also know Robotic a little bit. But I don't know anything about anybody else. I think there's like this big giant purple cat man, and there's this crocodile dude, I think, or is an alligator dude. I think there's a white hedgehog dude or silver one. I'm not a big Sonic lore knower, but I know enough to say this movie was very fun and did not insult the franchise. It was harmless fun. They focused a lot on James Marsden's character, and I think people wanted to focus more on Sonic over James Marsden, which is why we focused more on Sonic in the second movie. And I don't know if well, I was actually a pretty big fan of Donut Lord. He was reduced severely in his role here, and he was reduced even more in this movie. In fact, he's been reduced so much, he's not even on the cover anymore. So that's a pretty disappointing thing for being a fan of Donut Lord. He's no longer a part of the heart. He brought the heart to the series. I can't keep that up. I like him though. He's funny. He's a fun character. But Sonic was ultimately the center point of the series. So focusing primarily on him going forward, with Donut Lord maybe making a cameo here and there, is fine. And I do like that in Sonic 3 they do not really mention the Knuckles TV show. I have made it abundantly clear that I despise TV shows that are canon to movies. You make a movie, you release the movie, and if half of the script is from a TV show that is strictly on a streaming service, right? Luckily, Knuckles has a physical release, though, okay? So you can watch Knuckles if you really, really wanted to. But I despise when a movie is very reliant on a TV show. Your movie should be able to stand by itself. Naturally, there are movies that are really strongly based off a TV show, like the Transformers movie, the animated one, the original one with Stan Bush, right? Yeah, it's the cartoon. It's based off of the cartoon, so what are you gonna do there? That actually showed in theaters. But you could watch that movie and not be too lost. Well, there was another one that was based off a TV series that showed up in theaters. That was Batman Mask of the Phantasm. And luckily, that one you also didn't need to watch the TV series to really understand anything about that movie. So maybe I'm just being picky. You know, they've been doing this for a while now, but I liked this one. Okay, I liked that this one did not try to really grab that TV show and throw half of everything in there. Knuckles has no character in this arc. He has been reduced. All of his story probably was in the TV show. If he was going to have any character growth of adjusting to life on Earth and all that stuff, maybe it was in his TV show. Tails had most of his character arc in Sonic 2, same for Knuckles. So in Sonic 3, we don't really focus too much on them. They're just kind of there. Interestingly enough, it's Robotnik who has the bulk of the character development. In fact, Robotnik carries this entire trilogy. He has the most, outside of Sonic, he has the most plot development. He goes from working for the government, maybe a little bit mad villain man, to full-on villain man, to anti-hero? I don't know if he ever becomes an anti-hero in like the Sonic TV show or the Sonic lore. I don't know. I haven't played any of that stuff. I just know the 3 movies, but if that's how Robotnik is in the lore, then great. They actually portrayed that pretty fine here. But if that's not how Robotnik is in the lore, they just made that up, it's still pretty fine. Because this is Jim Carrey carried these 3 movies for me. And I'm very happy to see him come out of retirement for Sonic 3. Because I think he actually said in one of his whatchamacallits, in an interview he did, where he retired but said he'd come back for Sonic. If they gave him a good story for Robotnik, he'd come back and do a Sonic 3. He'll come back and do a Sonic 4. So if Robotnik survives the end of Sonic 3, which is up in the air currently, then he will come back for Sonic 4, which I really would love to see Jim Carrey come back for Sonic 4. He is very entertaining. He is absolutely off bonkers 90s Jim Carrey. Even though the man is in his 60s, nearing his 70s, he is still giving it all of his energy, even though he doesn't need to anymore. He's just doing it because he wants to. And I love that. I love when an actor does something simply because he wants to, he or she wants to, so that their passion and their energy gets to be put onto the screen rather than it just be a paycheck. You could tell the difference from a paycheck performance to a performance they actually want to do. This is a role that he wants to do. He wants to play this role. And I'm all here for it. I'm all here for that. As for Shadow, I don't mind Keanu Reeves as Shadow, honestly. That's not the problem here. It's more, this movie feels like the 4th movie, where there was a prequel movie with Shadow that happened in between 2 and 3, even though it was the Knuckles TV series that happened between 2 and 3. It feels like there's a whole lot more stuff that happened between 2 and 3. Technically, Shadow stuff happens before even Sonic 1, but Shadow, we just get to see a series of snippets of flashbacks, just a couple of them to satisfy our curiosity as to who Shadow is, to try to get us to feel some sort of emotion for Shadow's friend that he makes back in the past. And, well, it didn't stick the landing too much for me. I feel wanting. I'm left wanting. Which happens a lot in movies, which it might just be a me thing, but I was left wanting. I want more. I want more of Shadow's story. I want more of that. It's like, oh, go play the game, the GameCube, or the PS2 game with the Shadow. Go play that if you want your story. Oh, there's this comic, but I don't want that. I'll play the game eventually, but I want the story in your film universe. This isn't about all the external stuff that happened before, that was released prior, that has all the story, and this is just going like, oh, look, remember him? No. It's a different story medium. It's not meant to rely on audience familiarity to the character, so that you don't have to focus too heavily on the character's plot. Now, this is just something that is my personal opinion, but when you make a film adaptation of something, whether you're like adapting a book, adapting a game, adapting a comic, whatever, when you're adapting something to the silver screen, you have to quantify a couple things. One of the major things you quantify is, how are we going to satisfy the fans? How are we going to satisfy the fans of this project? How are we going to implement all sorts of plot elements, stay faithful to the lore and all of that stuff to appease fans of this IP? The next thing is, how are we going to explain this IP to people who have never heard of it before? They don't know Sonic. This movie needs to give them enough about Sonic so that they know who he is without having to rely on external material. Our movie needs to be able to stand by itself and tell you everything you need to know without needing to go anywhere else. Fans of the lore will have more knowledge than people who have no idea who this character is, but this film should satisfy the newcomers, so that they may want to go learn more about him, so that they may want to go grab more stuff about him. Shadow in this feels like they're relying a little bit too strongly on familiarity to the character, so that they can rush through his storyline a little bit. They rush through him because he is shadowed. He is, pun not intended, he is shadowed by Jim Carrey and Grandpa Jim Carrey's performances here. And they're excellent. They're absolutely amazing. But their story shadows Shadow. He feel... You know what it feels like? Remember Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3? Remember, Venom? Was it Venom? Could it be Venom? You know, they had too many things. Sandman had a decent heart story to it, but Sandman just kind of felt thrown in there when they already had Venom. They didn't need Sandman as well. But throwing Sandman in there, Sandman kind of felt shadowed by Venom's storyline and Goblin Jr.'s storyline and all of that stuff. They had too much pennies in the pot, so that when they finally did something with Sandman at the end, it wasn't as impactful, as heartfelt, as emotional. Sandman just kind of sands himself out at the end of the film. It had some good scenes, obviously, it had great scenes, but you're left wishing that Sandman had his own movie with Spider-Man, rather than being shoved in there with a triumvirate of other people in there as well, so that everything just gets schmickle-mockled together. That's kind of how Shadow feels here. Shadow feels like the Sandman of Spider-Man 3. And Sandman's story was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. He had some of the best scenes in that movie. But you're left wanting. You're left wanting with him. And that's kind of how I felt with Sonic 3. I was left wanting with Shadow. and wishing that he had more. Because it feels like all of those flashbacks are part of a film that they decided not to do, and decided to just take pieces of it and put it in here and hope we get satisfied. The Shadow just has a series of flashbacks, a handful of flashbacks, and maybe most of it is just for Grandpa Robotnik too, because spoiler: the Shadow's friend is related to Grandpa Robotnik, and so this whole big is like this big family feud. But Shadow just kind of feels like the pet dog. And that's disappointing to me as a fan of the character and what they tried to do here with him. I feel like there's so much more you could have done, that there just wasn't enough runtime, there just wasn't enough screen time to have these two juggernauts share a film together with. It's like Grandpa Robotnik ended up having way more impact, way more emotional scenes, way more everything, that Shadow definitely felt like the pet dog in the story. And, you know, maybe you should probably do a Shadow spinoff, you know, maybe do a Shadow spinoff. You know, like, where do you get the bike? Where do you get his boots? You know, he's been in some sort of tube for however many years. He comes out, he's woken up, he's like, where do you get all this stuff? You know, where do you get all of it? Oh, I recognize that. Oh, yeah, I recognize the boots, I recognize the bike, but where do you get it? Where do you get it? And they just probably just pass it off. Oh, Grandpa Robotnik probably just made him that stuff off screen. But it kind of just feels like Member Barry's going like, oh, remember that bike? Oh, remember those boots? He used those boots. Remember that? I like Sonic 3, even though it feels like I'm poo-pooing all over it. I loved this movie. It is one of the best ones in this. It had definitely the most emotional moments from me. And particularly because of Jim Carrey and Grandpa Robotnik Jim Carrey. It was fantastic. But they definitely had too many pennies in the pot here. Tails and Knuckles definitely have nothing to do here. Donut Lord and his wife have nothing to do here. They have something to do here, obviously, but it just feels shoved in. And Shadow feels like Sandman and Raimi's Spider-Man 3. You wish he had his own film. And then you have these two who are the best. They're the focal point. And these were nailed perfectly. Sonic is just fine. He's not really having too much to learn. He's just kind of there. No. They kind of force a storyline here with Sonic that kind of should have been here. You know, the storyline with that they were doing with Sonic should have been more for a Sonic 2, where he has to learn to work together, but he kind of just bosses Tails around, and he doesn't really work too well with Knuckles. And then by Sonic 3 here, he's just he still hasn't learned, and now he has to learn how to work as part of a team. You could have done a little bit better, but these two carry the film. They saved the film. They made the film amazing, fantastic. I'm just disappointed that the one that I wanted to know the most about was left, pun not intended, in the shadow. But yeah, that's Sonic 3. It's a fantastic film. It could have, and that's the thing I do want to say. That's the thing I do want to say about these films, is that they could have been so much worse. You've seen the memes with the original design for Sonic. This film could have been so much worse that it has no right being as good as it ended up being. It could have been a disaster. But they saved this idea. And I wish they take it in better places, in awesome places. Give us a Shadow movie and make a Sonic 4. Let's go. Come on. No TV shows, but do some good movie ideas.